Welcome to our journey into the world of antonyms. In this video, we'll explore words and their opposites, helping you expand your vocabulary and sharpen your language skills. Understanding antonyms is essential for effective communication, as it allows you to express contrasting ideas clearly. Whether you're preparing for exams or just want to improve your English, this series will guide you through common antonyms with practical examples. Let's dive in and discover how learning opposites can make your language more colorful and precise. Ready to get started? Let's explore the first word together. First word is enormous. When something is enormous, it's extremely large or massive. The opposite of enormous is tiny, which means very small or minute. For example, an elephant is enormous while an ant is tiny. Recognizing these opposites helps you describe things more accurately. Imagine seeing a mountain and a pebble side by side. The contrast is clear. By using antonyms like enormous and tiny, you can paint vivid pictures with your words. Let's move on to the next pair and see how opposites work in different contexts. Next, we have commissioned. When something is commissioned, it has been started or authorized, often referring to a project or task. The antonym is finished, which means something has been completed or ended. For example, a commissioned artwork is one that has just begun while a finished piece is ready for display. Understanding these opposites helps you track progress and communicate status clearly. Whether in business or daily life, knowing when something is commissioned or finished is crucial. Let's continue with our next set of antonyms. Word artificial refers to something made by humans, not occurring naturally. Its antonym is natural, which describes things that exist in nature without human intervention. For instance, artificial flowers are made from plastic or fabric, while natural flowers grow in gardens and fields. This pair of antonyms is commonly used when discussing food, materials, or environments. By distinguishing between artificial and natural, you can make informed choices and describe things more precisely. Let's see how antonyms help clarify meaning in different situations. Now let's look at exodus. An exodus is a mass departure of people from a place. The opposite is influx, which means a large arrival or incoming flow. For example, during holidays, there might be an exodus from cities as people leave for vacations, while an influx occurs when tourists arrive at a destination. These antonyms are useful in describing movement and population changes. By using exodus and influx, you can convey the direction and scale of movement effectively. Let's move forward to our next antonym pair. Word relinquish means to give up or let go of something. Its antonym is possess, which means to have or own something. For example, if you relinquish your seat, you give it to someone else, but if you possess a seat, you keep it for yourself. These words are often used in legal, emotional, or everyday contexts. Understanding the difference helps you express actions related to ownership and surrender. Let's continue exploring more antonyms to enrich your vocabulary. You expand something, you make it larger or broader. The antonym is condense, which means to make something smaller or more compact. For instance, you might expand a story by adding details or condense it by summarizing. These antonyms are useful in writing, science, and everyday conversation. By knowing when to expand or condense, you can adjust information to suit your audience. Let's see how antonyms like these help us communicate more effectively. Word mortal describes beings that are subject to death. Its antonym immortal refers to beings that live forever or cannot die. For example, humans are mortal, while in mythology gods are often considered immortal. These terms are common in literature, philosophy, and religion. Understanding mortal and immortal helps you discuss life, death, and eternity with clarity. Let's move on to another interesting pair of antonyms. Next is quiescent, which means being at rest or inactive. The antonym is active, meaning engaged in action or movement. For example, a volcano can be quiescent for years before becoming active. These words are useful in science, health, and daily life. By distinguishing between quiescent and active, you can describe states of rest and activity accurately. Let's keep building our antonym knowledge with more examples. Word obeying means following orders or rules. Its antonym is refusing, which means not accepting or declining to follow. For example, a student obeying the teacher listens to instructions, while refusing means not doing what is asked. These antonyms are important in understanding behavior and authority. By using obeying and refusing, you can describe compliance and resistance clearly. Let's continue with more antonym pairs. When something is fraudulent, it is fake or dishonest. The antonym is genuine, which means real or authentic. For example, a fraudulent signature is forged while a genuine one is original. These words are often used in legal, business, and personal contexts. Understanding the difference helps you identify truth and deception. Let's see how antonyms like fraudulent and genuine are used in everyday situations. Word flagitious describes someone extremely wicked or criminal. Its antonym is innocent, which means free from guilt or wrongdoing. For example, a flagitious act is a serious crime while an innocent person has done nothing wrong. These antonyms are important in law and morality. By using flagitious and innocent, you can discuss justice and ethics more precisely. Let's move on to the next pair. Belittle someone means to make them seem unimportant or small. The antonym is flatter, which means to praise or compliment. For example, belittling a friend can hurt their feelings, while flattering them can boost their confidence. These antonyms are useful in understanding social interactions and communication. By choosing the right word, you can express criticism or appreciation clearly. Let's continue with more antonym pairs. Word startled means suddenly surprised or shocked. Its antonym is relaxed, which means calm and at ease. For example, a loud noise can startle you, while a quiet environment helps you feel relaxed. These antonyms are common in describing emotions and reactions. By using startled and relaxed, you can convey different emotional states. Let's see more examples of how antonyms enrich our language. When someone is busy, they are occupied with tasks or activities. The antonym is relaxed, meaning free from stress or not busy. For example, a busy day at work contrasts with a relaxed weekend at home. These antonyms help you describe schedules and moods. By distinguishing between busy and relaxed, you can communicate how someone feels or what they are doing. Let's move on to the next antonym pair. Word fresh describes something new or recently made. Its antonym is stale, which means old or no longer fresh. For example, fresh bread is soft and tasty while stale bread is hard and dry. These antonyms are often used when talking about food, air, or ideas. By using fresh and stale, you can express quality and time. Let's continue building our antonym vocabulary. Someone is culpable, they are deserving of blame or guilty. The antonym is blameless, meaning not responsible for any wrongdoing. For example, a culpable person is at fault while a blameless person is innocent. These antonyms are important in discussions about responsibility and justice. By knowing the difference, you can talk about accountability clearly. Let's move to the next antonym pair. Word evasive describes someone who avoids giving clear answers or is indirect. Its antonym is honest, which means being truthful and straightforward. For example, an evasive reply avoids the question while an honest answer is direct. These antonyms are useful in communication and relationships. By choosing between evasive and honest, you can express clarity or avoidance. Let's continue learning more antonyms. Gregarious person enjoys being with others and is sociable. The antonym is antisocial, which means avoiding social interaction. For example, someone who loves parties is gregarious while someone who prefers to be alone is antisocial. These antonyms help describe personality types and social behavior. By understanding gregarious and antisocial, you can talk about how people interact. Let's move on to the next pair. Word pertinent means related to the matter at hand. Its antonym is irrelevant, which means not related or unimportant to the topic. For example, a pertinent question helps the discussion while an irrelevant comment distracts from the main point. These antonyms are useful in debates, writing, and everyday conversation. By using pertinent and irrelevant, you can keep discussions focused. Let's continue with more antonyms. When something is obscure, it is unclear or hard to understand. The antonym is explicit, which means clear and easy to understand. For example, an obscure explanation confuses people while an explicit one makes things clear. These antonyms are important in teaching, writing, and communication. By using obscure and explicit, you can describe how information is presented. Let's move forward with more antonyms. Urbane describes someone who is polite and refined. The antonym is discourteous, which means rude or lacking manners. For example, an urbane host welcomes guests warmly while a discourteous one ignores them. These antonyms are useful in describing behavior and etiquette. By knowing urbane and discourteous, you can talk about social interactions more precisely. Let's continue with more antonym pairs. Vanity means excessive pride in oneself. Its antonym is humility, which means being modest and not boastful. For example, a vain person always talks about their achievements while a humble person listens to others. These antonyms are important in character descriptions and personal development. By using vanity and humility, you can discuss attitudes and values. Let's see more antonyms in action. Word rarely means not happening often. Its antonym is frequently, which means happening often or regularly. For example, if you rarely eat sweets, you almost never do, but if you eat them frequently, you do so often. These antonyms are useful in describing habits and routines. By using rarely and frequently, you can talk about how often things occur. Let's continue learning more antonyms. Malicious describes someone who wants to harm others. The antonym is kind, which means being friendly and caring. For example, a malicious act is meant to hurt while a kind act helps others. These antonyms are important in understanding intentions and actions. By using malicious and kind, you can describe people's behavior more accurately. Let's move on to the next pair. Epilogue is a section at the end of a book or play. Its antonym is prelude, which is an introduction or opening section. For example, the epilogue wraps up the story while the prelude sets the stage. These antonyms are common in literature and music. By understanding epilogue and prelude, you can discuss the structure of stories and performances. Let's continue with more antonyms. Capacious means having a lot of space or being roomy. The antonym is limited, which means restricted or not much space. For example, a capacious bag holds many items while a limited bag holds only a few. These antonyms are useful in describing size and capacity. By using capacious and limited, you can talk about space and restrictions. Let's move on to the next antonym pair. Condense means to make something shorter or more compact. The antonym is expand, which means to make something larger or more detailed. For example, you might condense a speech to fit the time or expand it to include more information. These antonyms are useful in communication and writing. By knowing when to condense or expand, you can adjust your message for clarity. Let's continue with more antonyms. Adaptable describes someone or something that can change easily. The antonym is rigid, which means not flexible or unable to change. For example, an adaptable person can handle new situations while a rigid person sticks to their ways. These antonyms are important in describing personality and systems. By using adaptable and rigid, you can talk about flexibility and stubbornness. Let's move on to the next pair. Sacrosanct means extremely sacred or holy. The antonym is unholy, which means not sacred or even evil. For example, a sacrosanct tradition is respected by all while an unholy act is condemned. These antonyms are common in religious and cultural discussions. By using sacrosanct and unholy, you can describe levels of respect and reverence. Let's continue with more antonyms. Discreet describes someone who lacks caution or good judgment. The antonym is prudent, which means being careful and wise. For example, an indiscreet remark can cause trouble while a prudent decision avoids problems. These antonyms are useful in describing behavior and choices. By using indiscreet and prudent, you can talk about wisdom and care. Let's move on to the next pair. Word familiar means well-known or easily recognized. Its antonym is strange, which means unfamiliar or odd. For example, a familiar face is someone you know while a strange place is somewhere new to you. These antonyms are common in everyday conversation. By using familiar and strange, you can describe comfort and novelty. Let's continue building our antonym vocabulary. Tangible means something you can touch or feel. The antonym is ethereal, which means light, airy, or not physical. For example, a tangible object is a book while an ethereal idea is a dream. These antonyms are useful in describing reality and imagination. By using tangible and ethereal, you can talk about what is real and what is abstract. Let's move on to the next pair. Love is a strong feeling of affection. Its antonym is hatred, which means intense dislike. For example, love brings people together while hatred drives them apart. These antonyms are powerful in describing emotions and relationships. By using love and hatred, you can express deep feelings. Let's continue with more antonyms to enrich your vocabulary. Famous means well known by many people. The antonym is unknown, which means not known or recognized. For example, a famous actor is recognized everywhere while an unknown artist is not widely recognized. These antonyms are useful in describing popularity and recognition. By using famous and unknown, you can talk about reputation. Let's move on to the next antonym pair. Absolute means complete or total. The antonym is limited, which means restricted or not complete. For example, absolute freedom means no restrictions, while limited freedom has some rules. These antonyms are important in discussions about rights and possibilities. By using absolute and limited, you can describe the extent of something. Let's continue with more antonyms. Frugal means being careful with money or resources. The antonym is extravagant, which means spending too much or being wasteful. For example, a frugal shopper looks for discounts while an extravagant one buys without thinking. These antonyms are useful in financial discussions. By using frugal and extravagant, you can talk about spending habits. Let's move on to the next pair. Insipid means lacking flavor or interest. The antonym is tasty, which means full of flavor and enjoyable. For example, an insipid meal is bland while a tasty meal is delicious. These antonyms are common in food and experiences. By using insipid and tasty, you can describe quality and enjoyment. Let's continue with our final antonym pair. Word able means having the power or skill to do something. Its antonym is unable, which means lacking the ability or power. For example, if you are able to swim, you can do it. If you are unable, you cannot. These antonyms are useful in describing skills and possibilities. By using able and unable, you can talk about what is possible or impossible. Let's wrap up with a summary of what we've learned. You've explored a wide range of antonyms, from enormous and tiny to able and unable. Understanding these pairs helps you communicate more clearly and express contrasting ideas with ease. Practice using these antonyms in your daily conversations and writing to strengthen your vocabulary. Remember, learning opposites not only improves your language skills but also makes your communication more dynamic and precise. Keep practicing, and you'll master antonyms in no time.